All right, bull runners, welcome back to the channel. If you hold XRP, if you hold SUI, or if you hold Ethereum, we have a price emergency over the next 24 to 48 hours. We're gonna dive onto the chart. We're gonna talk about exactly what's happening and why paying very close attention to the next major move on Ethereum will basically ignite alt season for the projects that you hold outside of XRP and SUI as well too. So comment 777 if you guys are feeling blessed. If you're feeling bullish, you are not going to want to miss this video. Let's dive right on the computer right now. Let's run it. All right, bull runners, welcome back to the channel. So the altcoin market is bouncing over the past 24 hours, and there's a few key projects that we're going to pay close attention to in this video, like SUI, XRP, and Ethereum. So in my video yesterday, I talked about the best divergence trading strategy for beginners that want to trade XRP. It could be SUI, Ethereum, virtually any crypto project, even Bitcoin, to get closer to the bottom on your entry points. And so when we look at XRP's price chart right now, we saw a bounce for XRP over the past 24 hours. And so what we need to look at here is divergence on these key indicators and also confluence across different time frames as well too. Now it's a lot to get into in this video, so I'm going to keep it very simple for you guys and compare it to Bitcoin's price chart, because back in 2021 when we saw Bitcoin break down from about $48,000, we saw a massive sell-off to $29,000, and then Bitcoin had insane volatility, that was tough for anyone to be able to trade, because you would see Bitcoin bounce to the upside, sell off, bounce to the upside, sell off, bounce to the upside, sell off, bounce to the upside, sell off. Ultimately, what we were doing, we were forming lower highs and lower lows until the lowest low came in, right here at about $29,000. And when we look at the key indicators here at the same time too, we can see the stochastic RSI completely reset all the way down here at 0. And the relative strength index was at about 32, forming higher lows. And so what that is very simple, is a divergence. Now, the bearish divergence is the opposite, when we form higher highs that I covered and we form lower highs on these key indicators like the relative strength index. So Bitcoin formed a bearish divergence, which was a major reversal point right here at the first peak back in the 14th of April of 2021. And then we saw the reversal to the downside. Now, on the contrary, we saw a bullish divergence with lower lows and then higher lows on the relative strength index, and also a higher low on the stochastic RSI as well too, which was a major reversal signal to the upside. So if we look at XRP's price chart right now, well, what do we see on the left-hand side of the screen? We can see the XRP broke from this ascending support right here, and we saw this massive sell-off. And similar to what Bitcoin went through during this whole phase right here is what XRP is going through right now, just massive volatility. XRP rallies to the upside, sells off to the downside, rallies to the upside, potential sell-off to the downside. Depending on how low this sell-off goes, it's possible for XRP to experience a lower low, but what I'm going to cover in this video is going to explain why that might not happen. So we just need to pay attention to these indicators to get the best entry point, because right now the stochastic RSI is resetting back down here closer to 0. You can see the K line and the D line are at 24 and 8. So we are in a bearish downward momentum, sell-off right now, while XRP's price is actually holding pretty strong here at about $3.17. We didn't see XRP sell off rapidly with this massive reset, and the relative strength index right now is sitting at about 54. So we're in the middle of a range for the RSI, and we're in a downtrend on the stochastic right here. And so what I would need to see in order to see a massive, reversal for XRP is clearing of this high right here at roughly $3.30. That's what I would need to see. Otherwise, regardless of whatever happens to XRP in the short term, if we push higher, we could potentially come back down for a lower low. Similar to what happened on the right-hand side of the screen, if I just clear the chart for you guys with this massive fake out rally right here for Bitcoin before we saw a sell-off aggressively to the downside, and then a big fake out right here on the stochastic RSI. So right now, because the stochastic on the left-hand side of the screen for XRP is in a downtrend right now, and XRP's price is holding strong, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a move up for XRP to fake out a lot of investors. All that I'm expecting is major volatility in the short term until we clear $3.30, similar to what happened for Bitcoin right here. And we don't know exactly what's going to happen on a day-to-day basis. Nobody does, because how are you expected to know what was going to happen on a day-to-day basis for Bitcoin right here when one day we're up, the next day we're down, one day we're up, the next day we're down? It's very difficult to trade ranges like this. So that's why you need to look at indicators and watch for moments when we are closer to 0 on the stochastic RSI. And also check out the relative strength index as well too, for when we're closer to 30 or below 30. And then look for divergences to get the best entry point for yourself before major reversals. And so, because the relative strength index is at 55 right now, we are in an uptrend forming higher lows and higher highs on the RSI. Whereas the stochastic RSI is in a downtrend right now. This is giving me mixed signals. So I'm not aggressively bullish on XRP right now. I'm also not aggressively bearish because let's say, for example, we see another push to the upside for XRP, similar to what happened right here by the 15th of June. For Bitcoin, when Bitcoin rallied from like $31,000 to $41,000, faked out a lot of investors, and then boom, Bitcoin reversed back to the downside. So it's definitely not out of the possibility for XRP to do that as a massive flush out for short positions that have their stop loss right here at like $2.29 for XRP to push above that, then see an aggressive sell off to the downside before we inevitably work our way on out of here. But nonetheless, we watch the indicators, we look for confluence, and we look for divergences. And the latest news for XRP is that prime brokers like Hidden Road are helping unlock trillions in institutional trades by bridging TradFi and crypto. Listen to what CEO of Ripple, Brad Garlinghouse, just said right here.
A prime broker is really a one-stop shop that allows all kinds of different asset managers, whether these are well-known hedge funds, trading desks, market makers. It gives them a one-stop shop venue to trade and clear everything from digital assets, derivatives, swaps, all kinds of different assets. And these guys are doing trillions of dollars of trades. Historically, those have been really owned by the traditional commercial banks, the JP Morgans, the Goldman Sachs. Banks now don't do, well, new players like Hidden Road, a company Ripple bought recently, is new to this space, and they're growing very quickly by serving that same market, but also including digital assets as part of the mix. Having a well-capitalized and a super strong balance sheet player like Hidden Road is allowing more institutions to come into these asset classes against a well-capitalized counterparty, and that is prime brokers bringing people into crypto in 1 minute.
Now, it's important to remember that Ripple has assigned bank IDs to over 500 plus banks, so people still believe that XRP won't be used. It's absolutely ridiculous. They're preparing the global payment system, and by November of this year, when the ISO standard goes live globally, by then XRP should be breaking out. Now, if XRP is not breaking out, then there could be some key things wrong with the overall macro market conditions, interest rates, the Federal Reserve, etc., that we'll cover in other videos. But in my video yesterday, I talked about how Donald Trump signed a bill to basically modernize the payment system in the United States, transitioning from old school cash payments that created a lot of fraud with the Treasury to creating digital payments so that way everything's trackable, traceable. And he even said in my video yesterday, if you guys listen to that, they're going to be using proprietary blockchain technology for it. So it's no coincidence why he met with Brad, CEO of Ripple, and also added XRP to the strategic crypto stockpile, digital asset stockpile. And also it's no coincidence why Bank of America teamed up with Ripple to use RLUSD for internal transactions backed by BNY Mellon, integrated with River and OpenPad. And XRP has tons of ETF filings with the SEC from Bitwise, Canary Capitals, 21 Shares, Wisdom Tree, Pro Shares, Grayscale, CoinShares, Volatility Shares, Franklin Templeton, Hashtag. The only one that's really missing on this list is BlackRock. So I personally believe that BlackRock and Ripple are a lot more connected than most people think and are working together in a closer capacity than most people will ever realize. And they're on NDAs, which is why they're not sharing this publicly, and which is why CEO BlackRock, Larry Fink, says he can't talk about an XRP ETF because of this. Because from a business standpoint, really think about it and use some common sense here, because I guess common sense isn't so common anymore. But if you're the CEO of the largest portfolio management capital company in the world, has over $11 trillion in assets under management for the wealthiest people, why would you go out publicly on an interview and take the bait of a mainstream media interviewer when asked about an XRP ETF and say, yes, absolutely, we are actually planning an XRP ETF. We're just getting ready to pull the trigger on that and announce that publicly. Why would you say something like that? Because you know all of your investors would pile into XRP and the price would pump up astronomically in that moment. You still need time to give your insiders, I guess your friends behind the scenes, times to accumulate so you're not sharing your cards publicly. In a game of chess, why would you announce your final move? It's the stupidest thing that you could possibly do. So of course he's going to say he can't talk about it, or he won't talk about it. And then the mainstream media interviewer, if you guys didn't see that clip, here's what he said.
How about an XRP ETF? I know you got Ether out there. How about XRP? Can you answer that?
I can't. And you don't want me to.
I do.
Well, I can't.
All right. They're giving me the rap. Thank you.
So they're giving him the rap. People in his earpiece are saying, move on to the next subject. You can't talk about that. And also in my video yesterday, I talked about how Trump leaked the unthinkable, talking about stimulus checks, payments to Americans. Now, if they go through with that, that would be a bigger bullish catalyst for the crypto market, similar to 2020 after COVID when they issued stimulus checks. And for the people that say no one uses XRP, those people are only thinking about their small little crypto world. The world is much bigger than just the crypto or the XRP army or like these DeFi degens or people that are trading meme coins, guys. Look at this document right here. And the source on this information is from Binance, Coinbase, Cryptweek, Ripple, and Solana as well too, saying that stablecoins such as Tether and USDC provide a gateway to fiat and cryptocurrencies. Payment companies such as MasterCard and Visa have pivoted stablecoin settlements. And also right here, you can see recent use cases of top cryptocurrencies. Like Bitcoin, it says El Salvador has adopted it as legal currency. Fidelity, Bitcoin Trust attracted 102 million in less than a year. Tesla could resume accepting it as payment after environmental concerns are addressed. JP Morgan has launched its in-house Bitcoin fund for private bank clients. Invesco has filed the SEC for a Bitcoin strategic ETF, among other use cases right here. We can see for Ethereum as well too. Microsoft was looking to use a system developed on the Ethereum blockchain to prevent piracy. CME Group has launched Ethereum futures. China app Metu, or however you say that, has bought 40 million worth of Ethereum and Bitcoin. Wisdom Tree investment filed for Ethereum ETF with the SEC. And we can see Cardano, hundreds of online merchants accept Cardano as payment. That's about it for Cardano. But XRP, hundreds of financial institutions, including American Express, Bank of America, and Santander, have partnerships with Ripple. Ripple partnered with various sustainability leaders, including the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, aiming to hit carbon net zero by 2030. And XRP acts as a bridge currency to other fiat currencies exchanged on the Ripple platform. Ripple is the real-time gross settlement system, currency exchange, and remittance network. So in terms of crypto people, the bottom of the pyramid in the hierarchy of power here, yeah, they might not use XRP and they might just speculate on it. But in terms of the top of the pyramid, when you have the financial elite that essentially control the central banks, like the Bank for International Settlements, the IMF, the World Bank, then that goes down to national central banks, like the US Federal Reserve, Bank of England, Reserve Bank of Australia, Bank of China. That then goes to the big banks, which is Citibank, Chase, Bank of America, Goldman Sachs, Wells Fargo, HSBC. These are the clients that Ripple's going after. They're not going after the DeFi degens here, or the meme coin traders, guys, that are all the way at the bottom at the planet, people, planet, and all living things. They're going after the central banks of the world. They're going after the BIS, the World Bank, the IMF, the Federal Reserve, then the HSBCs, the Goldman Sachs, the Banks of America. That's their clients that are going to be using XRP. Then you have the corporatocracy. You got like ExxonMobil, you got Pfizer, you got Monsanto, you got the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. A lot of people say these are corrupt companies, but the reality is you just have to pay attention to where the domination, the control is, where the wealth and the resources are that flow up the chain to the top of the pyramid, and then how it flows down to the peons at the bottom of the pyramid, like us, that get the information last. And so when they sign these non-disclosure agreements and they don't tell the general public about this, then you find out about it later. At least you can say you got to jump on 99% of the population by subscribing to the Bull Runners channel when we share this information for you. Because as the government right here at the bottom, basically you got politicians that are paid off from the higher ups, basically, that tell them what to do because all the world's a stage. Then they start passing these bills. Trump is a businessman. And so Trump, why would he say no to get paid millions of dollars, potentially billions of dollars? We don't know how much he's getting paid to sign all of these bills to be pro-crypto. Or maybe he just believes in crypto, regardless of whatever the reality of the situation is, whether he's getting paid to sign the Genius Act and be pro-crypto and getting these scripts to read in his speeches about Bitcoin as major lobbying efforts to move the needle forward. Well, we know that Ripple donated a lot of money to the Democrats and they donated a lot of money to the Republicans to play both sides of the board. And so crypto companies will donate to politicians to get bills passed. And so these politicians just pocket that money and then they do whatever the highest bidder is willing to tell them to do. And so thankfully, the highest bidders are going to be the crypto billionaires and the companies that are capitalizing on this bull run to be able to pay Donald Trump and his whole entire cabinet and this whole entire Republican Party to be pro-crypto, to put the right people at the head of the SEC, Paul Atkins, to put the right people in Congress, and have a changing of the guard to be pro blockchain and pro distributed ledger technology. And so when we look at other projects that are going to experience the majority of the capital inflows, well, Sui is one of them. I made a video about Sui versus Solana and why I was more bullish on Sui, and now we see Sui breaking out of this symmetrical triangle right here and just consolidating on top of it. So depending on what happens here in the short term, well, if we look close up at what's taking place for Sui right now, we saw a bounce off of this descending resistance right here at roughly $3.57, and we're coming back into this zone right here at like $4.30. We just got rejected from it, but Sui eventually will break this, in my opinion, and it'll go back to the all-time high and inevitably past the all-time high towards the end of this year. And so with this consolidation and bull flag right here from the 15th of July, where Sui just sold off, rallied up, sold off, and formed lower highs, lower lows, consolidating on top of this descending resistance, we also could see that the stochastic RSI has come all the way back down, and we're attempting a bullish cross right here at about 20. Now, the relative strength index is at 66 right now, so we're still in a downtrend right here on the stochastic, and we are pulling back at this zone. So my expectations for Sui could potentially be a little bit longer of a consolidation right here through this range before we break out to the upside. So just watch the stochastic RSI. I would want to see it come a little bit closer to zero, similar to what happened all the way back here when Sui was breaking back out to retest, this previous high right here. We saw while Sui broke out and then consolidated and just formed, higher highs and higher lows and just kind of coiled up right here. We saw the stochastic RSI reset as well too. And then on this bullish cross right here at about 20, well, it bounced up back to the high, sold off again, and then just formed higher lows and higher highs right here until a much bigger correction took place, allowing the stochastic RSI to fully reset all the way down here at 0 and the relative strength index to come back down to 43 because we were forming a bearish divergence. As you can see right here, the RSI, if I just clear the chart for you guys so you can clearly see it, and I'll zoom in for you. Look at this. You can see right here when Sui rallied up to $1.63 is when we experienced the bearish cross on the stochastic RSI and the relative strength index topped out. So we formed a higher high in the price chart, a bearish cross right here on the stochastic RSI, and then we formed pretty much a lower high on the stochastic, and then the relative strength index formed about an equal high, which is a weak bearish divergence. But what happened next was monumental, because when Sui broke all the way up here to about $2, look at what happened to the stochastic RSI. We saw this massive breakdown in the meantime as we experienced those higher highs and higher lows, and the relative strength index formed a lower high. This was the major start of a bearish divergence, because from that point right there, so we continued to break out to about $2.35. And then look, the stochastic RSI inevitably formed another lower high right here, and then a lower high right here on this bearish cross. And the relative strength index formed a lower high as well too. So that was the turning point for Sui to experience a little bit bigger of a correction right here for this ABC. It gets bought up, and then we form a revival pattern before continuing to the upside for Sui. And so this right here, if I just trace up the chart for you guys to where we're at right now, is sort of what we're experiencing for Sui right now. Because as you can see right here, at one of the most recent highs for Sui at about $4.09, well, what do we see happen right here on the stochastic RSI? We formed a bearish cross. It's similar to what happened right here on the 20th of September when we formed a bearish cross, and Sui experienced this high right here at about $1.63. So what's happening right now is Sui is putting in higher highs, whereas the stochastic RSI is now putting in lower highs, resetting like what happened right here. And the relative strength index as well too. On this high right here at about $4.10 for Sui, the RSI topped out at about 74. So as Sui puts in a higher high right now, the relative strength index is at a lower high. It depends if the RSI pulls back here in the short term, because it could technically rally up and form like an equal high or a higher high, depending on if Sui just keeps pushing higher like this. But nonetheless, you want to watch these key indicators right here, because if the relative strength index pulls back from right here and starts doing something like this, where it's forming lower highs, while Sui continuously puts in higher highs to come up back to the previous all-time high, similar to what happened all the way back here in October of 2024 when Sui rallied just barely above its all-time high. That's when we saw a much bigger correction take place, and the stochastic RSI fully reset all the way down here at 0 while there was volatility in the short term. So this is what we need to look for, and also the relative strength index as well too, to come down closer to 30, like what happened right here when it came down to 42. It doesn't need to come below 30 or to 30. It just needs to reset a little bit lower right now, because the RSI is at 66 and the stochastic is at like 28 and 19 right now. We're not down at 0, so It's not a bad thing because SUI, if it pulls back in the short term right here, you could actually get a little bit better of an entry point before we push to the upside higher, and then just expect volatility. I would just expect higher lows and higher highs right here as we come back up to the all-time high, and then an inevitable handle formation right here, because ultimately what SUI is doing right now since January of 2025 is just this massive cup, and we're finishing up the cup right here. Then once I think we go through the handle, then SUI finally starts to blast off in the final stage of this bull run. And inevitably, if we just take the depth of the cup right here, which would be the all-time high for SUI, and the bottom of the cup at about $1.72, and we put that to the breakout point right here, I mean, that's all the way up at like $16 for SUI. Now, I'm not saying that it's going to go to that price, but from where we're at right now, if that were to hypothetically happen, that's about a 295, almost a 3x from right here. And so if we just trace this up for you guys from what happened during the last breakout for SUI, it could look something like this. We might stop short and we might only get to like 10 to 12 bucks. We don't need to do a full extension because it really depends on the depth of this cup. Like I measured all the way to the wick right here. You know, if we were to take it just to like $2.06, that takes it to about $14 to $15 for SUI. So we just don't know how high SUI will go on the next major leg up. But one thing that we do know is that most investors are still stuck in the Ethereum versus Solana debate. Meanwhile, Grayscale has been quietly backing a third contender, and it's not another roll-up or monolithic chain. It's SUI, and the architecture is nothing like you've ever seen before. Grayscale launched the Grayscale SUI Trust August 1st of 2024. And as of June last month, it holds $12.3 million assets under management with Coinbase custody and KPMG behind it. So it's a regulated asset, private placement for US accredited investors, no token wrangling, no wallets, just exposure to high throughput L1 packaging for institutions. And while most chains rely on global state machines, SUI treats all assets as independent objects. So that unlocks parallel execution, no bottlenecks, stateless scalability, sub-second finality, 390 millisecond under test. So it makes it super fast with 120,000 transactions per second, and 0.0037 cents is the average fees per transaction. So regulated SUI exposure means compliance teams did their homework, and Coinbase custody equals New York Trust, which is a compliant asset storage. So if you're wondering why Grayscale picks SUI, it's because they're built by ex-Meta engineers that developed Facebook. ZK Login enables Web2 UX, which is Google Twitch logins. They have 70 plus active decentralized apps across DeFi, gaming, and NFTs. They have a high total value lock to market cap ratio, which is underpriced activity. And if we look at DeFi Llama, we can see the total value locked over $2 billion. So it's already past its all-time high in total value locked, whereas the price chart shows SUI, when I just clear my drawings right here, still below the all-time high. So the next move for SUI is going to be rapid. It's going to be similar to what happened back in October of 2024. And sure, we could see a little bit bigger of a correction in the handle before we inevitably break back into price discovery and absolutely explode. So just watch these key indicators right here and look for the stochastic RSI closer to 0 on the daily chart. Also watch for the relative strength index to be at 50 or a little bit below 50. And if you guys aren't in Altcoin Pro University, back in November, Yoni posted about a SUI bull thesis when it was at $2.30. We even called SUI around a buck as well too, before that massive breakout. And Yoni did an amazing job breaking down why SUI was going to be extremely bullish. And yeah, it took a little bit of time with this sell-off for SUI, but for those of you guys that were able to accumulate that dip all the way down here, when this was posted at $2.30, that would have been the same equivalent of buying SUI right here before the major breakout, and you would be up over 80%. And that's not including those that accumulated SUI when we called it at $1. Now, we're not saying to buy SUI, I'm not saying to buy XRP, I'm not saying to buy Ethereum here, because this is just purely educational, informational purposes only. Crypto is risky. You can still lose money in these markets. So I'm not recommending you to buy or sell anything. I'm just providing you guys with the facts on the charts and the data so that way you can make your own educated decision. So go consult your financial advisor. But SUI flipped base in BNB and active addresses. So the SUI chain is thriving and it is exploding right now. So you guys have seen this picture before, the path to alt season and how phase one is just Bitcoin. Bitcoin dominates the markets and Bitcoin's dominance has been rising. Once we see an overlap as money starts to go into Ethereum and other large cap projects, we see talks of the flippening where we hear, Ethereum could flip Bitcoin. Well, in this case, there's certain other caps, large caps that could flip Ethereum. But as Ethereum breaks out, what do you guys think that means for phase 3 when Ethereum has been outperforming Bitcoin and large caps are going parabolic like SUI, like XRP, like Chainlink or other projects that are a little bit further down the lane? We need to focus our energy and our attention on which large caps are going to move first before you start focusing on the mid caps or the micro cap projects by phase 4 of alt seasons, because after large caps, virtually everything has gone fully vertical. After the key few players that institutions are positioning themselves early, like Sui, even Ondo, which I'll make other videos about in the future, once those start to see their blow off tops, then mid caps, low caps, micro caps all tend to pump around the same time at the end of the bull run cycle. And you do not want to be late. You want to be able to rotate your capital effectively and in a very smart way, like the institutions do, borrowing against your crypto. So that way, you have massive tax benefits that we'll talk about later.
Have you built a crypto portfolio over $1 million, but want to access your wealth without selling any of your coins? Well, imagine unlocking up to 85% of your portfolio's value to fund ventures like real estate, to buy other projects in the crypto space that are undervalued compared to the projects that you currently hold, or to diversify into different DeFi yield opportunities. That way you can live on the interest without selling any of your crypto. Well, we've partnered with a leading global office offering non-recourse crypto loans for investors with portfolios starting at $1 million. The same company that is trusted by the world's largest institutions and investors, because as you already know, the billionaires don't sell their crypto, they borrow against it. So if you're ready to unlock up to 85% of your portfolio's value without selling any of your coins, and you have a portfolio with at least $1 million, then email us at team@bullrunners.com. You're going to see our email contact in the description below, and we'll get you connected with the company that has helped clients like ours north of $100 million borrow against their crypto without selling any of it. So reach out to start a conversation with our team right now at team@bullrunners.com, and we'll talk to you soon.
Let's look at Ethereum's price chart right here and compare back to what happened all the way here from 2020 until November, right here from September to November, because we saw Ethereum experience a major breakout right here by the 1st of September 2020 to $487 and then get sold off really hard back down here to about $309. And so what did we see happen recently to Ethereum? Well, by July 21st of 2025, Ethereum rallied up to $3,800. And then we saw this massive sell-off for Ethereum down to $3,600. And so we see this major zone right here that was support, for a period of time. And then once it broke below the support, what happened? Well, it came back into it to back test this range. It's not exact price level, right? Because certain assets don't move to an exact price and then move down from it. It moves within a range, and sometimes it can push a little bit further to the upside. As you can see right here, if you look at the 21st of July, just a few days ago, when Ethereum was at 3,700, well, Ethereum rallied to $3,763, then got rejected for a lower low. So what this was an ABC corrective wave right here. And in an ABC corrective wave, we see the first initial sell-off, we see the B wave, which is a dead cat complacency stage bounce to come back into support, act as resistance, and then see a final sell-off to the C wave as the bottom. And so what did we see happen here for Ethereum back in 2020? Well, we see A, we see B, and then we see the C wave. Now the C wave can be equal to the A wave, or it could be a little bit lower. In this case, it was an equal bottom as the A wave right here. And so we don't need to get too exact on that. You just need to look at the chart pattern right here and see what took place after the C wave. We start to make a recovery. And so once the C wave was in, we start to make a recovery back into resistance, and then we sell off back to an ascending support, back into resistance, and then we coil up right here until inevitably we break above resistance, then we back test it as support, using this ascending support as a launch pad for the next major move back into price discovery. So what's happening for Ethereum right now? Well, we saw this sell off to the C wave. We rally all the way back into the B wave resistance, similar to what happened all the way back here between September and October of 2020. Then we sell off again back down to form an ascending support. Rally back into resistance, sell off back down to ascending support. What are we doing right now? We're rallying back into resistance, and we're just coiling up right here, similar to what happened between the 12th of October of 2020 and the 21st of October of 2020, right here for Ethereum. Now, arguably, this could be, if you were just looking at the stochastic RSI, more comparable to what happened between the 23rd of October and the 4th of November, right here. But from an actual support and resistance level, it's more comparable to this level right here. But from an indicator level, if we're just looking at the stochastic, you guys can see that we experienced a bullish cross right here after Ethereum pulled back. Look at what happened to the stochastic. We reset all the way back down here closer to zero, and we just experienced a bullish cross, and now we're bouncing to the upside. So similar to what happened right here from the 24th of October, bearish cross, stochastic comes all the way down, stochastic comes all the way down. Bullish cross, price experiences a little short-term balance, followed by, boom, little sell-off back to this ascending support, reversal to the upside. What's happening right now? The stochastic experiences a little short-term balance, the price is bouncing, potential sell-off back down to this ascending support, then we use it as a launch pad to break to the upside. So I think Ethereum is getting ready to make a massive move similar to what happened at the tail end of 2020 right here in November. And then we just basically form higher lows and we form higher highs, inevitably, just marching higher and higher and higher for Ethereum until we experience the euphoria stage of the market cycle and the major blow off top. And so that would put Ethereum, if I just zoom out for you guys at the top of the screen on the daily chart, you can see where Ethereum is right now. We're marching all the way back to $4,000, which was the high of, March, also the high of May, also right here at the 5th of December. And so this is where Ethereum's heading next in the short term. And then inevitably, the all-time high right here at like $4,900 back in 2021. I do not see why. I think this is like one of the easiest trades in the history of crypto right here because Ethereum's not going anywhere. I get it. You're more bullish on projects like XRP or Sui's faster, it's cheaper on Sui or Solana. And there's other, real world asset projects that are just lower market cap than Ethereum that will outperform it in terms of percentage gains. Yes, you're most likely right. However, institutions are looking at Ethereum right now because of what Trump is doing. And with his World Liberty Fi project, the people behind the World Liberty Fi, I know those guys. They bought Ethereum at a few bucks and they're up hundreds of millions of dollars. They're influencing Trump on Ethereum. And so with Ethereum, being a part of the digital asset stockpile, of course, there's like XRP, Solana, ADA. The thing is like, oh yeah, by the way, like, of course we're going to have Ethereum and Bitcoin as well too, because it's common sense. It's phase 2 of alt season. So Ethereum to Bitcoin's price chart has been breaking out, and we did experience a trend reversal in terms of a higher high right here for Ethereum just recently than this level, which was resistance. And so now I would expect Ethereum to continuously march higher, even if we experience a pullback in the short term. Well, that would just be a higher low than the low right here of the 24th of June in this massive uptrend for Ethereum. So regardless of whatever happens relative to Bitcoin, like if Ethereum starts to break out and Bitcoin goes sideways, then we would see ETH to Bitcoin's price chart do something like this to come back into this range right here to back test it as resistance before the major pullback and, and Ethereum to do something like this to continue higher. So inevitably, I just expect Ethereum to outperform Bitcoin over the next 3 to 6 months. Also, Mike Novogratz said the same thing. So that just confirms my analysis as well too, because, I was looking at the charts before he ever came out with that video, and then I played it in my clip yesterday. And sure enough, all the other massive whales and hedge fund and portfolio capital company CEOs are now saying the same thing. So they're now catching up to Ethereum here. And so if we just look at where the next resistance is for Ethereum's market cap dominance, well, right now we are at 11.8% of the whole entire industry, which means out of the market cap of every single cryptocurrency, Ethereum holds almost 12% of that, which might seem like a lot of money, but it's really not that much considering right here in December of 2021, Ethereum had 22% and then sold off all the way down here to about 14%. And so this right here would be the next zone for Ethereum at about 14 to 15% market cap dominance for the next major move. When we see, or if we see that happen, because I'm not going to make any guarantees, and Ethereum is outperforming Bitcoin, well, we're going to see money start trickling into other large caps, and we're going to see major buy-ups happening, like what's taking place right now for Sui as well too. So just pay very close attention to the ETH to Bitcoin price chart, Ethereum's dominance price chart, and also Digital is going all in on Ethereum. They're raising $1 billion by issuing new shares and using all of it to buy Ethereum. So when public companies start stacking Ethereum like this, it's a clear sign where confidence is heading. They're not just making stupid moves like someone that has $1,000 and they're just gambling it in a project here. They're moving hundreds of millions to billions of dollars. And so this is why we're seeing Total 2 break out. It's because a few key leaders like XRP, Ethereum, Sui, and a few others as well too have been breaking out. That's why the market cap of everything other than Bitcoin has rallied from 1.1 trillion to now 1.48 trillion. So I compared this in a previous video to what took place on this breakout right here from the 4th of November until the 11th of November. We experienced a sharp rally back up to retest this dead cat bounce, complacency stage high, and then we just experienced a sharp major pullback right here and then an aggressive rebound recovery rally. What did we just do recently? The exact same thing. We experienced this rally up into the complacency dead cat bounce high, from January of this year, and we experienced a major sharp pullback, and now what are we experiencing? Aggressive buy up right here. And so the next major move for Total 2 is really to break into price discovery. Now, if that doesn't happen, I would just be shocked. I mean, it'd just be strange because global liquidity is way ahead of Bitcoin and the rest of the market right now. So the only common sense thing that would take place is for the market to catch up in anticipation of Jerome Powell either stepping down or getting fired from the Fed, announcing his resignment, kind of like Gary Gensler, them getting ready to lower interest rates. So I'd expect the markets to pump into that news. And then when it finally takes place, maybe that's a sell the news event, somewhere up here, do something like this before we blow off top and then go into a bear market, But the next major move for the altcoin market is going to be massive. It's going to be rapid, and you have to be ready because when the rotation finally does take place into the mid caps and the micro caps by phase 4, then we're going to see the others chart absolutely explode because others right now is still way below the complacency high right here at roughly, $400 billion at the peak. And so look right here at what happened back during the last major breakout for others right here. Once we experienced this major revival pattern and we broke above this resistance right here while we were in the downtrend, it was on the 8th of November right here. We experienced this massive rally out, then this aggressive back test. So I talked about this. I said, watch this resistance right here that is part of this revival pattern. We experienced a pullback from it. Now we bounced above it aggressively and we experienced a sharp pullback to it. And so right now, the next major move for others is an aggressive breakout back into this zone right here, which is roughly 385 to $400 billion market cap. We're at 300 billion right now. So that would be roughly 85 to $100 billion to come in everything outside of the top 10. And so just because like Ethereum, SUI, or XRP, or Ondo, or like Chainlink, or HBAR, or whatever, XLM, or whatever big projects you guys are holding, Solana as well too, Dogecoin, those start to move first. Doesn't mean that others outside the top 10 just sit there. They move as well too. It's just that their moves aren't as aggressive until it's at the end of the bull run cycle when we're finally in the parabola, like euphoria stage. But nonetheless, similar to what happened right here between the 11th of November and the 24th of November with this aggressive move back up, back to the complacency stage high, then an aggressive back test. What we could see is a breakout right here back to the high, and then boom, aggressive back test like this before massive blow off top. And so we just have to be ready for that. Now, if that doesn't happen and we break to the downside and we just go through a longer consolidation phase right here, then that just presents a better dip buying opportunity for your favorite altcoins. But look for confluence, watch for divergences, and also plug into Altcoin Pro University because our research team is going to share with you guys the top mid-cap and micro-cap projects that are going to experience the major moves based on the marketing, the team, basically what's happening with the narratives. And when liquidity flows from large caps down the chain, you want to be ready by spotting those projects. For example, our research team posted GOAT on the 13th of October of 2024 when it was right at a penny, and since then it rallied to over $1, 5,000%. That's like turning $1,000 into over $50,000. Our team called Pendle at only a $16 million market cap, or 16 cents, back on February 18th of 2023, all the way back here, and since then it's rallied up over 4,000%. That's a 40x. It's like turning $1,000 into over $40,000. Our team also called BitTensor Tau September 15th, 2022, before the token was ever even launched. And since then, Tau has rallied over 2,000%. That's a 20x. Our team even said Solana is most likely to be one of the easiest trades next year, and this was posted December 29th, 2022, on the day that Solana bottomed out at around $8. And since then, Solana looks like it's up over 2,500%. That's a 25x. It's like turning $1,000 into over $25,000. The list goes on and on and on. Our team called SUI, Ondo, and even some of the biggest cult-based meme coins like MOG back in July 20th of 2023, the day that MOG launched. So if you want to learn how our team is finding these altcoins before they explode, we just launched Altcoin Pro University, where our research team gives you real-time altcoin picks with explosive potential for this bull run, along with 100+ expert curated classes crafted by industry experts to discover these gems yourself, on top of our live weekly calls every single week for in-depth crypto market analysis and daily updates. And that's just a fraction of what we offer
inside of Altcoin Pro University through the link below. And although we make no guarantees because crypto is definitely risky, guys, this is only $97 a month or $970 a year. If you want to save $194, getting 2 months for free and unlock some exclusive bonuses, just go through the link in the description below, get in right now, watch the 26-minute video covering everything that Altcoin Pro University offers to help you become the first millionaire in your family tree, if that's a goal of yours. And you can get started through the link in the description below right now, or you can go to bullrunners.com to take advantage of the bonuses we're giving you before they expire. Everyone is loving the community. They're loving the education. They're getting access to real-time altcoin picks first before we ever make videos about them. So click the link in the description below, watch the video, and I'll see you on the inside.